Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today is going to be part 3 of prepping this curbless shower on a concrete slab. In this video I'm going to show you how I go about prepping the concrete that's outside the shower. I actually had to pour a self-leveler, so this video will basically consist of how I'm prepping that to make sure the elevation's right and whatnot. So what I like to actually use for my perimeter expansion here, and that acts as the dams to hold in a leveler too, so you don't have it leaking down the walls and whatnot. I just use ripped down plywood. I believe this plywood was about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 tops, but I bought a sheet of it a few years back. I actually reuse these pieces. So what I do is I cut them this size. I'll screw them to the wall, just a few screws to hold it in place. Then I'll take some blue painter's tape and put that on the bottom section of the wood dams there. That way when I go to pull them out, they won't stick to the leveler. So that's an important step. You don't want just the leveler pour in the wood because it'll suck the moisture out of it too quick, and it could potentially bond or stick to it. So I'm going to do that first around the whole perimeter, then we'll go from there. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm using acrylic caulk. It's actually fast drying one to caulk the base of the dams to the floor. That way nothing is going to leak in. It's completely sealed off the whatnot. So I'm going to do that around the whole perimeter and go from there. Okay, now that I got that done, I'm actually going to be painting the floor, and the process, or the method you can say I like to do, is I shoot the room with my laser. This laser goes around the whole room. It's kind of like a rotary laser. You can see it real good. It's nice. The newer style bright green ones. So what I'm doing is I'm taking measurements. Okay, so as I was saying, what I'm doing is I'm taking measurements to see, because I'm actually going to make this floor level. I'm not going to just pour it to make it flat. It needs to be as level as possible because the whole, perimeter of the shower there is going to be pitched in from there in. So if that's not level, then the shower floor is not going to be level from that long 6-foot way. So it's important that you get it level. So this floor wasn't too bad. I believe the thickest I had to go in one area was about 1/2 inch, and that was where the plumber kind of poured the new concrete there to get his pipes where he had it to. So the rest of the floor is pretty much 1/8 or 1/4 inch, so it's pretty close. So I'm measuring, and what I'm doing is I'm right on the floor how thick I have to be with my pin. So my pin is about 1/8 inch at the minimum. That's about the thinnest you really want to go. Most levelers on a slab, you can go about that thin. Plywood, you got to go thicker, but slabs are strong, so you don't have to go too thick. So I'm going to start off with 1/8. So let's say the floor is off an 1/8 from my level. So I'm going to make that pin about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start, my base is 1/8 inch, so whatever the measurement is, whatever it is off from level, I'm just going to add 1/8 to it. So if it's 1/4 inch, then the pin needs to be 3/8. So I'm going to do that going around the whole perimeter, and I'm going to use the pins to stick down to the concrete. Okay, so the pins that I'm using here are really come in handy for concrete, because if you don't have these, you have to use a drill and drill into it, and now you're making a mess on the floor there, and that's already wiped down, clean, ready for the primer. So these you can get on a few places online. If you're curious, just leave a comment, I'll tell you where. A few places online that I know that you can get them, and they come like 50, 100 packs, something like that, and they have it's made by 3M, so it's going to be quality, and they stick down to the concrete. They have basically like little piece of plastic there. You peel it off, it sticks down. Now these will come off if you walk on them, or if you bang into them a lot, so be careful with that. A few of these actually had a reset and use some caulk to hold them down. So now that I have everything, I have my measurements written on the floor, I'm just going to put these, usually they say like on a big floor you can do, I don't know, anywhere, if I would say about anywhere 3 or 4 feet in a box. Here I'm going to do every about 2-foot box, and I'm going to do a little bit more about the shower floor because that's got to be dead on. But I got multiple areas, now I'm going to put it down, go from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that this floor is dust free by wiping it down with my sponge here. So that's real important because wherever you're putting on this primer to, that's going to be your floor. So you don't want dust for a floor, right? So make sure that you wipe everything down, make sure it's dust free, clean, and ready to go. Okay, we're ready to start prepping this floor. I got all the pieces down. This one came up, I use some caulk and stick that one back down. Make sure they're all tight down. If they're not, I'll pull them up and caulk them. But anyway, make sure you have no big voids. I had a big void over here, so use a rapid set and patch material for that one. So I'm gonna wipe down the whole floor again, make sure we're completely dust free. Caulk over here, let that sit up for another 10-15 minutes. Caulk over there. Make sure all the dams are still holding here, and then we'll spread the primer, let that dry for the required amount of time, then we'll be ready to pour the leveler. Okay, now we are ready to start priming this floor. Now I'm using a Latacrete primer here because I'm using a Latacrete self-leveler, so make sure that it's always a good idea to use a primer that comes with the manufacturer of the level that you're using. That way you can't go wrong. This is the primer they make. They want you to dilute it. But honestly, I don't do self-leveling that much as I used to, but next time I will. I'll just use their primer. They make an all-purpose primer that you kind of just pull on, and that's for any type of substrate, the bond, tile, or a self-leveler. I believe Latacrete makes one. I'm not sure the name exactly, but it's a multi-purpose primer. Comes in like a pail like you see there on the floor, and you just paint on one coat. It takes about anywhere from 30 minutes to about an hour to dry in most cases. Then you can pour the leveler. In this case, I just use their primer because that's what I can get. And I actually had to prime the floor twice in a few spots. The spots where the new concrete was real thirsty, so it took a lot of time. If I had a regular primer they just paint on, it would be done in one shot. But I know that for next time, so just a quick tip there. I would use that primer, not the paint on primer, not this type of primer that's kind of like a liquid. But yeah, I painted this whole floor one time, let it dry for about 2 hours, and then I came back in and primed the areas that are real thirsty where the primer dried quickly. That way when I pour the leveler, everything dried properly. Okay, now that the primer is fully dried here, we're ready to start pouring the leveler. Now, usually I have myself and someone else pouring these levelers because they get real heavy. What I usually do is mix about 2 bags in my drum at once and then pour, because ideally you really want to do it in one pour. But I'm by myself in this one, so I'm mixing 2 buckets, which is 1 bag in each bucket, which is fine. I use about a 5.5 gallon bucket. 5 gallon, you'd probably be going over the top of the rim, so you really want to get yourself a 5.5, 6 gallon bucket. And mix 2 bags at a time, 2 buckets worth, and then pour them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour them in first. I'm going to move it around with my flat trowel. Now, one thing what I've learned is when you pour these levelers, you have to make sure that you're to the height of the pins. If you pour this and you still see those pins kind of sticking up in a few areas, then the floor is not going to be flat or level. So make sure you pour to at least the height of them. Then you definitely know that you're going to be flat and level. So you want to move it around, make sure, because it'll self-level itself within a few feet, but then it's going to stop. So you really got to move it to where you need to get the material in there. If you don't, you're going to be having humps. You can really get yourself in trouble real quick with this material if you don't know how to work with it. So make sure you follow that. So I poured 1 bag here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour another one. Now, I like to use a flat trowel. You can also use a spiked roller. You can hook it up to basically like a paint roller. It's as like a nap, or they make them by themselves. They're like 2 feet wide, and that basically gets the air out or blends the pores together, and that works well for breaking the surface tension. I personally like to just use a flat trowel. It moves the material where I want it, and you break that surface tension. So what happens if you just pour this all in here, you don't touch it, you're going to see pore lines and things probably won't come out right. So pour it in there, move it where you got to, smooth out the surface, and you're good to go. So now I'm pouring the second bag, and I believe I poured 4 bags here. So I pour this in. I'm going to move all the sections. All I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get in here and walk on it. And when I bought this self-leveling mixing kit, they come with spiked shoes. They're not the best quality. They might move around you, so be real careful, but they allow you to walk in the membrane. Walk in the self-leveler without, disturbing it too much. They're basically just spiked shoes, and as you walk out of there, the self-leveler will come back in on self. You won't have any holes anywhere. So you can see what I'm doing here, flatten it out, go from there. So I hope these tips help you. The rest of the video, I'm probably just going to let you guys watch how I go about this, and that's it. So once this cures, we'll pull this out and we'll have a nice flat and level floor for this curbless shower. Okay, as you can see, I noticed that the leveler is a little bit low in this area, so I'm coming back in with some leveler and making sure we're at the right height. You can see when you pour the leveler on top of the leveler, you're going to see that white line, so you really want to blend it in, use your trowel, break that surface tension, and you have yourself a nice self-level pour, you can say.
Thank you.